Okay, hey guys, today I'm gonna be making a video about my birth story of my little baby girl. Um, Mind you, whenever this story took place, I was 17 at the time. I'm currently 18. She's like two months and a week, 2 months and 2 weeks almost. Like she was born like 1 or 2 days after I made my last video. Saying that she didn't want to come out. So I'm gonna be giving you guys a video explaining my birth story, and I actually am gonna leave a disclaimer now. My birth story was actually very good. So I know some people only want to surround themselves with bad ones, so that when they have theirs, maybe, like, I didn't care what I saw. I didn't care if I saw bad or good birth stories. Some people only want to see certain ones, and that's just my little disclaimer. Mine was a good experience. Okay, so we're gonna start off with this on my due date. My due date was December 9th, and I'm gonna give you a little backstory. Before all this happened, I've always tracked 100% of my periods and stuff on my app since the day I started getting them, since I was like 14 or 15 when I started. So that was a lot later than a lot of other people. So that's why I've been able to track them. They've always been very regular. The latest I've ever been was like a day late. Okay, so that was like a burp, kind of. Okay, so when I was 2 days late, and I told my friend at work, I was like, I might be pregnant, but I was like, I'm not. I really didn't think I was. And then I ended up taking a test, and I found out I was pregnant when I was 3 days late. So I told my mom about in, I think, April or May, and I found out in March. So my nausea was always real bad. My pregnancy, in my opinion, was kind of like tough. Like I struggled a lot to breathe. I worked the whole time. I struggled so bad with nausea where I couldn't eat or drink for days at a time. And even with the nausea medications and stuff. But so I knew my app said that my due date originally would have been December 11th. But when I went to the ultrasound, my first ultrasound, they said I was measuring ahead of what I told them. And they said that I was December 9th. So that's why, even though medically I was 2 days late, I don't think I was. I think it was perfect. She just said, But, okay, so fast forward to that day. December 9th, I made a video on December 9th. And I said, I don't have any signs of it, me giving birth, so I was probably going to end up getting induced on December 18th, which didn't end up happening. So later on that night, my boyfriend got out of work at like 10, and he got home at like 10:30. So I called him when he got home, and by the time he got home, he was tired, so he went to sleep, and we just fell asleep on the phone together like we normally do or whatever. And I started getting contractions at that time, but it just felt like cramps. And at that time, like, she's gonna start crying, isn't she? But it felt like, cramps. I didn't 100% know what they were. I was thinking that they could have been, but I was like, no. But by the end, like, by 11 o'clock that night, I figured that they were. So the whole night, so then I fell asleep. I had a decent night's sleep, I guess. It was completely fine. I woke up and I was still having contractions, and by that time I was like, I'm 100% sure they're contractions. And by then you could feel the start and the stop to them. That's it. I have two friends that were still pregnant. I gave birth at first out of the two, my other two friends that were pregnant at the same time as me. And so that's basically what I told him. You'll know it's a contraction because you'll be able to feel the start and the stop of it. That's the best way to explain it. So I started in the morning. I was like, these aren't bad, but they're very often, and that's what, you hear on TikTok. You're like, oh, you don't go off of the pain because obviously you're going to think it's worse than it is. You go off of the time. They were coming back to back. I mean, they were 2 minutes apart from the time that I started getting them, and my contractions app told me to go. So I went on December 10th, and I ended up getting admitted very quickly. They took a while to check me, but they were monitoring me for a long time. They had to monitor me for at least 3 hours. They told me, and I was already being monitored for 1 hour, and then they monitored me for 2 more hours, saying I could leave if the 1 and 2 hours says that I'm not contracting enough. And it said they're happening often enough, but they're not happening strong enough, which I understood. I was like, these aren't that bad anyway. So I was like, okay. So later on that day, they said come back if you have any bleeding. Well, I started bleeding, but that also was probably because that was my first cervical check, because they said I was 1 centimeter dilated. So I called them. They said don't come back, and the lady made it seem like, oh, do not come back unless your water breaks. She was like, I've heard a lot of people's water don't break. My mom's didn't. They broke her water. So like I was just going because I was like, what if that just happens? I don't want to, So, and my mom was panicking. My mom was the one that was making me like have to go because she was just like rushing me. So they sent me home. I called them, whatever, and then I just slept the rest of the day till my boyfriend came home. Got off of work at 10. I told him what happened, but then he got home at like 10 or 11, at like 10:30 or 11. They're making noises. And I was like, they're not that bad, but I could feel them, and we stayed on the phone, but I didn't want to wake him up. But at 12 o'clock in the morning, I woke up. We went to sleep at, I remember, 10:30 that night. I woke up at exactly like 12:01, and I woke up and I felt them. Like they started to hurt, and I was like, oh, maybe it was just this one. No, they got a little bit farther apart, but they were every 4 minutes now at this point, but they were strong. So I could not fall asleep. Every time I would fall asleep, I would wake up, and it would hurt when I would get a contraction when I was laying down. So I'd rather have been sitting down, but then sitting down started to really hurt. So I knew standing was my only option, but I hate standing. The only way I can stand is if I'm doing something that requires me to stand. I can't just stand to stand, even if it's to avoid pain. I hate standing. So I would just keep getting up to get cereal. I remember that. I kept getting up to get Fruit Loops over and over and over again, just so that I would have a reason to stand up. I stayed up that whole night waking up. If I did go to sleep, I went to sleep for like a minute. I tried to sit in my mom's rocking chair, and then like a contraction would come, so I would try to stand up before it would happen. Like, it was just horrible. My mom woke up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I was in the living room, and I'm never outside of my room, so she was confused. So my mom was like, you want to go walk? Because I told her how the pain works for me, and she was like, you want to go walking with your aunt? Because my mom doesn't want to drive to the hospital, so she's like, we'll go walking with my aunt, and if the contractions get worse, then she could just take us. And my stepdad was mad. He was like, you're spending all your time with her or whatever, because day before she called off because she thought it was good. She called Saturday off, which is the 10th, I think, and then she had Sunday off, which was the 11th. So we went walking early in the morning. My aunt got up, took us. We went to go get coffee, and we went to walk around. Like, we just went to walk because I knew that, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what your body wants you to do. Is when your body wants to work with gravity instead of against gravity, which makes sense to me. So it made me feel better knowing that. But sitting in the car and getting a contraction was horrible. But I actually saw my kindergarten teacher. My fucking kindergarten teacher for the first time since kindergarten at there that day. She's gonna start crying. Let me go get her. You guys can see it. Little baby. Come here. Look at my little bobblehead. Oh, look at her. So, then we went to a whole bunch of other stores like Kohl's, and I hate Kohl's. And we went to like all of these stores just because I didn't want to go back home and have to lay down, because that's what I would have done if I went home. So then we went to a seafood buffet, and because her boyfriend calls her complaining, "You're not hanging out with me, so I'll take you guys to eat so that you have to talk to me." So he did that. We went to the buffet. He's allergic to seafood, mind you. And he did that. So he starts having an allergic reaction. I'm having very bad contractions. I couldn't even cross the street to get back into the car when they were all freaking out because he was having his allergic reaction. I wasn't even able to cross the street to get to his car. And I just went to my aunt's car, but they weren't opening the doors. It was freezing out. Nobody cared about like what was happening with my contraction at the point. Yet I was trying to get them to take me to the hospital. I was very much in pain. And they're like, "Do you want to go to the hospital?" By the time they asked me that, I'm like, "Yes, I do." But nobody was listening to me when I was trying to tell you guys. So we got up and went to the hospital, and he was very mad at my mom. He was like, "I'm gonna die, and you're going with her." And so we ended up going. This time they took forever to admit me. By the time I went in there, took a long time to put the monitors on me and everything. Like, everything took so long. My bed didn't even have like a railing. So how was I didn't even have anything to like release my stress on or anything. So like I was mad. I was very mad. They didn't even put the contractions monitor on me, so obviously I was mad. And then we were there for like a few hours. By the time they checked me, I was 6 centimeters, so they took me upstairs immediately, and they asked me if I wanted epidural. I was planned on doing natural, but I was like, if I'm only 6 centimeters right now and it's this bad, I'm getting epidural. Well, it took them like 3 minutes max to go get the person to do the epidural. They did the epidural really quickly, but they did have trouble finding my veins. But that was it took them a few minutes, but they found my veins. It took like less than 5 minutes. This whole thing, I swear to God, this was so much faster than I thought it would have been. And then they put it in me. They check instantly after they put the epidural on, instantly, and I was already 10 centimeters. So they were like, "Oh, whatever." And then so I was 10 centimeters. They took me to I was already in the labor and delivery room, but so I was up there for less than 15 minutes by the time I started pushing, because they had to give it a little while to kick in. So I started pushing. So my mom left the room thinking I meant her to leave my room. Called my boyfriend. He was at work, and he gets there, and then they instantly that's when they tell me start pushing, because the epidural was kicking in. So he got there just in time, basically. And then my mom thought I meant for her to leave the room, but I meant for my aunt to leave the room, because they said only 2 people could be in there. So I was like this to her, meaning get my aunt out of here, because they're not going to kick my boyfriend out. But she thought I meant for her to leave, so she left. She keeps saying, I only got, as soon as I got to the waiting room, they told me come back in here. You push that baby out like butter. I'm like, shut up. But yeah, gave birth to her at 7 p.m. or something. And it was the most I didn't hurt at all after I got up to use the bathroom. I just felt weak, which makes sense because you just got a whole part of your core taken out, and it was very interesting. Postpartum was really hard for me though, mentally, as well as sleeping wise. I think I had some form of insomnia associated with postpartum, because I could not sleep. Even when I had the opportunities to, I couldn't. I was so I was overthinking so much that it was making me struggled to sleep, and then the lack of sleep as well as postpartum was causing a lot of postpartum depression. But overall, I think I'm in a much better state than I even was before I had her, which is surprising because I was in a good state before that. And look at her. Look at her. How cute she is. But yeah, that's it for today's video, guys. This is my little baby. She's so cute. She's balding a little bit now. You see her little stripe. Look how cute she is. She's heavy. She's a little heavy girl. She likes my mom more than me, but it's okay. That's okay, because I love her more than my mommy loves her. She don't need to know that, though. But yeah, thank you.